Okay, so in this video we're going to look at equivalent fractions and how to simplify fractions. In the last lesson in the introduction to fractions, we looked at how we determine the different sizes of fractions, the difference between them, such as a half, a third, or a quarter. We learned about what is the numerator and what is the denominator, and we learned to use this information to decide what is bigger, say between a quarter or a fifth. Okay, so think of that idea of pizzas. Okay, now what we're going to look at, and it carries on, is equivalent fractions. So we came across this in the last lesson where we discovered that something such as 2/4, which we had here when we were thinking about the pizzas, was the same size as 1/2. Okay, so if we consider these three bars that I've drawn out here as holes, okay, so this is 1, 2, 3 holes. Okay, we're going to look at them separately. Each of them are divided up, but they're divided up into different amounts of pieces. Okay, so this bar here is broken up into two pieces, which are known as halves. Okay, so 1/2 representing the shaded part. The second bar is broken up into 4 pieces. Overall it is the same size, so again it is a whole as well, but it's broken up into 4 pieces this time, and we've shaded 2 of them. So we can tell by the shading that 2/4 is the same as a half, because these 2/4 here are the same size as this half. Okay, so 2/4 and a half are what's known as equivalent fractions. And equally on the bottom, another example of this nature, only this time we've broken the bar up into 8 pieces and we've shaded 4 of them. We can see that 4/8 is the same as 2/4, which is also the same as a half. So these are all examples of equivalent fractions. Okay, so carrying on from that, and we'll come back to equivalent fractions where sometimes we have to make the digits larger, and that's handy when we're looking at things like adding and subtracting fractions of different denominators. We'll come back to that. We're going to look at simplifying fractions. Okay, so we're going to simplify 3/6. Okay, and what you have to do to simplify something like this is you have to look at both the numerator and the denominator and decide a number that goes into both the top and the bottom. Okay, so I know that 3 and 6 are part of the 3 times tables, so I divide the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 3/6 is another example, just like 2/4 and 4/8, of a fraction that simplifies down into a half. So 3/6 is part of this family of equivalent fractions. Okay. Now the second example I have here is 4/10. So you always try to divide by the largest possible number. In this case, we have 4 and 10. Well, I know they're both even numbers. The largest number and the only number that's going to go into each of these to simplify it is 2. So I divide the top and the bottom by 2. So on the top I get 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Another example, okay, if I look at 6/18, okay, so we're going to try think of the largest possible number that goes into both 6 and 18. And the largest possible number is 6, so I'm dividing the top and the bottom by 6. Okay, so 6 divided by 6 is 1, 18 divided by 6 is 3. Okay, now just to point out, when it comes to simplifying fractions, sometimes we can simplify more than once and we'll end up with the same answer. It's always best to try to pick the largest number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator. But say for example we looked at this, and just like the one above, we decided, well, they're both even numbers, so we can divide them by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. Okay, so we're left with 3 nines. Now that is a simplified version of this because we now have smaller digits. However, it's not in what's known as its simplest form. Okay, we need to get it down to this. So I look at 3 and 9 and I recognize, okay, well, both these numbers can be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So what I end up with is a third, just like up here. So sometimes we can take more than one step. We'll get to the same answer at the end of the day, so it's really up to yourself, but best is always to try to think of the largest possible number. Okay, so I'm going to give some example or some questions for you to try, and anything you're unsure about, just feel free to ask.